Hi, everyone. Welcome to another live episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. As you know, it would not be the same without you. And today I'm excited to welcome my friend and our special guest, Dr. Zoe Shaw. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Zoe, and then we're going to jump in with asking her some questions, not only about her appearance in chapter 4, by the way, of my book and the chapter is called Retire Your Cape. The book is called Get Over, I Got It. But we're also going to talk about Dr. Zoe's new book, A Year of Self-Care. So we got a lot to talk about. Make sure if you're watching this live that you ask your questions, put them in the comments so we can answer your questions. You can ask Dr. Zoe anything you need to. But first, let me tell you a little bit about her. So Dr. Zoe Shaw is a licensed psychotherapist and relationship expert with a doctorate in clinical psychology that she's held for 17 years. She's also an author of the new book, as I mentioned, A Year of Self-Care, also a host of her own podcast, The Dr. Zoe Show, a mother of 5 children, and a wife of 25 years. So she speaks from personal experience when she coaches her clients who are busy women trying to do it all. Now, this is part of the reason, again, I was thrilled to talk to Dr. Zoe for a chapter in my book, Get Over, I Got It, which comes out on May 11th. And I speak to her in chapter 4, Retire Your Cape is what that's called. And we're going to talk about why we called it that and why we're going to talk about, Superwoman Complex. So Dr. Zoe is also going to share with us today how she got over her I got it syndrome, how to avoid overwhelm, which I know a lot of us are feeling during this time for different reasons. We all have our reasons. Why we have to retire our Superwoman capes and learn how to accept support, and why she wrote her book that provides you with a year of self-care. So Dr. Zoe, thank you so much for being here.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you. I'm so excited. I feel like this has just been a long time coming.
I know you interviewed me when I think I was stuck with not being able to finish the book. Like
Yeah.
you helped me address that fear. I had a live coaching session on Dr. Zoe's podcast. So go back on that first episode. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey and I'm so happy to have you be a part of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let me start by asking you, on behalf of all the women, I would say a few good men who love the women who are superwomen, what is Superwoman Complex and why do we need to get over it?
Ooh, good. Loaded question. That whole idea of Superwoman started from such a wonderful place, right? It started, I think, with the women's movement and this idea that we can do it all. And then over the years, it kind of morphed into we are freaking exhausted. And that's where this whole idea of Superwoman Complex, it has begun to be understood. This idea that we can do it all doesn't mean that we have to do it all in one season. It doesn't mean that we have to do it all by ourselves. And when we have this idea that we're the only one that can do it and we have to do it all, we develop this complex. And the complex includes a lot of things like anxiety, arrogance, right? Ego, sometimes just really not being realistic about our limits and not caring for ourselves, of course.
How do we get to the point where we realize if suffering is the right word, or experiencing the Superwoman complex? Is it just that we're feeling exhausted, or are there some other signs that you have seen either in yourself or in the clients that you work with? Like, you know what, we need to restructure some things because you're basically burning yourself out.
Right. So eventually, if you don't address any of it, you're going to get to that place of burnout. My hope, and the reason why you wrote your book, the reason why I write my book, the reason why I do the work I do is that women will figure that out way before they get to that place of burnout. I got to a place of burnout and I don't want people to get there. So yes, burnout is like the worst, the ultimate symptom. But before that, little things start to creep up, which look positive, like I'll just do it myself. Right? It'll be easier if I just do it myself because they, stress me out and they're not doing it as well as I can. Or like I said, sometimes even arrogance or ego. This idea that I should be able to do it all because I am a superwoman, and this taking on that cape in a way that's not healthy. Those are kind of the symptoms when you start to recognize that you're in that space of, yeah, I can do it all. I'm going to do it all. And I'm not going to count on anybody else because all I need to count on is me. Those are the small symptoms leading up to what could eventually become a burnout.
And that cape, I believe it becomes, we're sort of using it metaphorically here, but it sort of becomes heavy. Like I feel like sometimes I felt the weight, if you will, of it all. And how do we know when, okay, I've reached that point, I got to get some help. I think that's what's important too. So not even knowing, sometimes you talk to people like, oh, I'm so stressed, I feel burnt out, I feel this, but then when is the point that people should get some help and call someone like you?
Yeah. And I don't want to just look at that cape as negative, because I think that cape
Mm.
is beautiful, because we are Superwoman, right? We are, and we have talents and abilities that's, way surpass in many ways men sometimes. So I want to honor it, but our cape has to be healthy, it has to be light, and it has to look like us, not like somebody else. But I want to answer your question. I think one of the first little signs is resentment. When you start to notice that you're resenting things in your life, people in your life, that's a time when you need to point back at yourself and say, okay, I need to get some help. What am I doing? What boundaries am I not creating? What help am I not getting that's causing that resentment? If you're noticing that you're feeling that in your life, it's already time to go ahead and figure it out and get some help.
So I love that thank you for calling that to our attention and my attention, the reminder that we don't have to, almost what I heard, maybe it just resonated with me, is not to feel shame about wearing your cape. But I
Right,
think what you said about it, celebrating it and it being the cape that fits you. So it looks like you, it's what you need in that moment. So I think that's very important to not feel shame about being Superwoman.
yes,
Right?
absolutely.
In your own way, though, right? I think the thing is we get caught up with trying to keep up with everybody else's version of it. I always say, shooting all over myself. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I should be doing all the things. And then you're doing so much that's not even, as we'll talk about, as you say, in alignment with what you really say your values are.
Right, right. And that's why
Yes.
my podcast sub name is Redefining Your Superwoman, because there's nothing wrong with being a superwoman. You just have to be your own. You can't be somebody else's. Yeah.
Yes. Now, why do you think sometimes when we do get to that point where we say, okay, I am Superwoman, but I do realize I can't handle it all or can't handle it all by myself. Why do some of us as busy women or as Superwomen view that as a failure?
You said that word shame, and that is real. Shame, guilt, it comes from those places of should, because in some ways we're fed a crock of lies, right? We're fed this idea that we should be able to do all that stuff. We watch our moms struggle, and sometimes our moms were not so healthy in the way that they navigated things. And sometimes our moms, like my mom, for instance, she was a stay-at-home mom. And so I imagine that I should be able to do all the things my mom did as a stay-at-home mom and yet still be this career woman. And
Hmm.
I had definitely had some guilt and shame around the things that I felt that I was dropping. But the reality is I couldn't be both perfectly in the idea of perfect. And I was just talking to a new mom. She's getting ready to have a baby. She's a career woman, and she's in a place of a lot of stress right now. And her mom was a stay-at-home mom. And the thing that I told her is that there's not just one way to do it. And we have this idea that there's only one way to be a good mom. There's only one way to do our career. There's only one way to follow, this path. And when we get caught up in that, then she's already feeling guilty before the baby has even come out of her body.
Right.
And I think that we have this sense that there's one way to do it. And if we don't line everything in our life up that way, then we failed and then we feel guilty. And that's just not the truth.
I think that's so important of a reminder too, especially for all of us as women, but especially for moms when you're looking at your own mom and what that looked like, right? So sometimes the should isn't even just, we talk about social media and all these other places where we're getting all this just input, I
Right.
call it, whether we want it or not, but also even looking at family history. Are we trying to live up to some ideal that just doesn't exist now, actually? Because if your mom was a stay at home mom, but she didn't have, not shouldn't say, but, and things look different at that time as they do now, you're doing that part and doing the other things. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things, excuse me, that came up when I was doing research for the book around the Superwoman complex and around just the women's movement overall. It's like women wanted more rights and to be able to work outside of the home and all of those things, which are fantastic, which we did get, but we didn't let go of all the other stuff. So
No.
it's sort of like, getting it all, but then now we're all trying to do it all. So we got a couple of likes here. Thank you, everyone. Please, if you have any questions for Dr. Zoe Shaw, please put them in the comments. I'll make sure to ask her. We can address anything that we can during this conversation. So please or a comment if you want to leave us a comment. So Dr. Zoe,
Yes.
one important message that you share in the book, quote, you say, you are never obligated to be the same person you were yesterday. That's your own obligation you're putting on yourself, number one. And then number two, if you aren't changing, then you're not growing. Why do we need to remember that we are not obligated to be the same person we were yesterday?
Yes, because we get caught up in this whole sense of ourselves as a static person and our identity. And along with that comes regret, like you said, the shame. And
Mhm.
the reality is that we as humans don't really like to change. We resist change so much, and it's because it's kind of protective in our nature. Developmentally and historically, it's protective to resist change. But in resisting change, we sometimes sabotage ourselves. And so we think, well, I'm always like this. Well, I just can't do that, right? I haven't done it before. I can't do it. And this is just how things are going to be. And reality is, if when you look at your priorities, and we'll talk about that later, you figure out, okay, I don't want to be this way anymore. It's okay to completely shift. And sometimes the people who have the hugest problem with that is our circle, right? Our husbands, our partners, our kids, even our employees, or, our people we're working with, because they want you to be the same person you were yesterday too. So if you always let them trample all over you, they want you to continue to let them let you trample all over, let them trample all over you. And it's okay to go, nope, I'm not that person I was yesterday. Yeah, maybe my boundaries weren't very strong. Maybe I wasn't asking for help, but today and moving forward, this is who I'm going to be, and that's okay. It's okay to change.
It's okay to change. And that's so important, because usually it's the people who love you who are not the hardest on you, but the most difficult with adjusting to your change, right? And like you said, I think it's because it helps. Well, you didn't say this, but I'm thinking it's because it helps their lives be easier. If you just stay the same, they can depend on you to be your whatever raggedy thing you're doing. This is who you are. But then you decide to make a move and everyone has to adjust.
Yeah. And for that woman out there who wants to make the change, or who has tried to make the change, and what happens, and I promise you, what will happen is that when you change, the system, because you were part of a system, the system around you is going to try to pull you back to equilibrium.
Right.
And so you have to be ready when you make a change to recognize that things will get worse before they get better. Your kid's going to throw a fit. Your husband's going to have an attitude. Your people are going to be like, we don't know what's going on. And whether it's subtly or whether it's, clear as day, they will try to get you back to where you were. But if you remain strong, if you hold that boundary, what will happen is the system will rise to meet you, because the system likes equilibrium. And so a lot of times people quit earlier because it feels like it's just too hard. I'm just going to go back to what I was doing before. It wasn't working, but at least it's the evil, that I know. And my encouragement to you is stick through it, because if you do, your system will rise to meet you.
Great advice. Thomas Cross Jr. says, never live in absolutes. You can always change. Thank you,
Yeah,
Thomas. And
absolutely.
Leonie C.R. Smith says, amen. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but I was a single mom chasing a PhD with a 1-year-old at 26. Right? Yes, go. I don't allow anyone to make me feel guilty about being a career woman and a mom. I started my PhD at a 1-year-old and ended 10 years later with another 1-year-old. Mothers come in all forms. You know what? We are celebrating you, Leonie. And then Kamal Harris. Hi, Kamal. Elaine, what's good? Oh, you miss me. I miss you too. I know we haven't all seen each other in so long. There's all of that to deal with too. And actually, I do want to talk to you about just this idea of balance for moms in 2021. What does that even look like? I have no answers. I'm just going to ask you questions. So a question I do want to ask, since you're talking about, since we started just talking about alignment and your activities, changing your activities. When I interviewed you for Get Over, I Got It, one of the techniques that you provided that I even use still today is the importance of doing a step back and doing an assessment of whether your activities align with what you say your values are. So can
Yes.
you tell us what that practice is and why that's important?
Yeah, it's very important. I suggest that everybody do this about every 6 months. Just take inventory of what's important to you. And actually, I want you to share a story that you shared with me before about priorities, because it really resonates with me. But often what we do is we have busy lives, right? We're trying to do a lot of things, and we have these ideas in our head that are sometimes not necessarily fantasies, but they're these ideas about what we want our life to look like, what's priority for us. So an example is a mom will say, I want us to have family dinners every night at 6 o'clock. That's a priority for me. It means a lot because I know how healthy and important it is for families to have dinners together. But then what happens is the way she aligns her life is that her kids all have activities around that time. And she finds that the majority of the time they're running through drive-throughs, to get food before they have to go off to soccer or whatever. And she's feeling very unaligned, maybe not quite sure why, because it doesn't necessarily click. But if you write down the things that are your priorities, and then you look at, okay, are my priorities actually aligning with my behaviors? Because when they aren't, we feel dysregulated and we feel unhappy, really. And so if you can look at that, and here's the thing, sometimes your behaviors are in no way aligned with what you say are your priorities. And then you've got to evaluate, is that really a priority for me? Is there another way I can attain family time that doesn't have to be at 6 o'clock, having dinner together? Or is that really important to me? And if it is, then I need to figure out how I can line them up. And when you do that about every 6 months, you'll find that you're living a life that's more aligned with the life that you want to live. Even if it doesn't look like that other person's life, that doesn't matter. What matters is that your priorities line up with your behavior.
I love that exercise. It's so good. And everyone, I'm telling you, I have done it and it actually works. And I think what you just said is so important too. Sometimes you might look at it and say, you know what, that's actually not a priority or not a priority anymore. I think when we first started talking, you mentioned about seasons. A
Mm-hmm.
certain season of your life, something may have been a priority. Now, if you've done this, and this is why, as you said, it's good to do the evaluation every 6 months or so, seasons change. They
Yep.
literally change, and seasons of your life certainly change, right? So, doing that assessment. Excellent. Everyone, again, we're talking to Dr. Zoe Shaw here. Dr. Zoe is the author of the new book we're going to talk about, A Year of Self-Care. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, which I absolutely love. I keep on my coffee table and pick it up and read it daily. And she is also featured in Get Over I Got It, which is my new book that comes out on May 11th. She is chapter 4, Retire Your Cape. You want to make sure to look out for the tips she's sharing here and a lot more. But it was so enlightening. I'm always enlightened when I talk to Dr. Zoe, but it was so enlightening to have her input in the book as well. We have Shirley here that says, wonderful topic. Glad to hear that I'm not alone. You are not alone, Shirley. We are here with you. Thanks for reinforcing what I've been trying to do for years. Excellent. Shirley, do that exercise. Let us know how it goes. Dr. Zoe's on LinkedIn as well. Let us know how that goes. I'm telling you, it really helps. And most important, to be thinking or to assess, is this a priority anymore? I think that's what's important. Another thing that you mentioned, Dr. Zoe, is why it's important to take small steps once we do decide, okay, I'm going to make this change, whether it's around dinner time or whatever it is, and not to sort of do these sweeping changes that disrupts the whole family. I think that was so good. I think the example you may have told me either in the book or in person was, say, for example, I'm going to work out in the morning. So this means that my whole family has to go to bed 2 hours earlier, and then I'm going to get up 2 hours, and everybody's like, what is happening? So
Right.
tell us a little bit about how you suggest that your clients or people you coach make those small changes.
Right. Well, I want you to, again, recognize that you live in a system. You have an internal system, and then you have the system externally, right? And when you make those changes, remember what the system's going to try to do. So it's easier to make very small changes. You'll have better, reactions from the system. And on top of that, you'll be more likely to follow through. A lot of times what happens is, it's like that woman who reads the minimalist book and then she decides she wants to clear out her whole house. But then
Right.
like she wants the toaster, right? She's throwing it out. And the reality is that as you make small changes, you will actually be more motivated to make slightly bigger changes, if that makes sense. So, if you want to start a workout, start with 10 push-ups a day. You will be more likely to do 15 the next day than you will if you go out, and everybody's done this. It's January, you go to the gym. What happens at the gym? You have 100 people there, and it's down to 5 by the end of January because people started out too hard and they tried to make sweeping changes that disrupted their entire system that they can't maintain. the changes are good and they will happen, but we underestimate how much we can get done and a period of time. We think that we have to do everything, like lose 20 pounds this week, but we really underestimate the fact that we can lose 50 pounds, in 6 months or a year, and it will stick a lot better than if we lose that 10 or 20 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yes, excellent. Leonie said, I just bought the book last week. Which one? Tell us. Did you get both? Get both. They're both incredible. Get both. Get both. Thank you from both of us, whomever's book you bought. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Zoe. We're living through a pandemic. We're surviving. Everybody, if you're here, you survived. Thank God. And God bless anyone who lost anyone in the past year and a half. What does balance look like for us today?
You know what? It looks like adjustment and flexibility. After the pandemic, and I have a very structured routine, and I couldn't go to the gym anymore, and my kids were home all day, 24/7, and I started feeling resentful.
And you have 5 children.
Yes, I do. And I remember I have this routine of going for my run, and my girls wanted to go running with me. And I felt like I was a little kid. I'm pouting like, okay,
I want to go by myself.
running, feeling sorry for myself. I can't get out and exercise because my kids are talking nonstop. And, halfway through the run, it actually turned out to be an amazing thing. My daughter had her bike. I realized that I have to be more flexible, right? I have to look at this as an opportunity. And I was able to enjoy my workout with my girls when I was able to look at it as an opportunity to spend time with them, to be flexible and look at it from a different lens. Now, the reality is I still didn't get my me time. And so what I needed to do was make sure that I'm finding my me time in a different way, because my me time is no longer exercising because my girls want to come with me. And so I think it's important to be flexible, but you also have to make sure you honor what you still need in those times when everything is just changing. If I had just done that and neglected my me time, that would have been unhealthy for me.
Mm-hmm. And what might some of those moments look like for us? Does it have to be, say, if I'm a single mom and I can't necessarily, even though I might want to, and God bless you, single moms, even though I might want to be like, you stay here, baby, I'm going to go out for a walk. So it might not, it might not look like that in reality. What are some other suggestions maybe that, and I know you're all about a year of self-care, but some things that we can do if we just need to, I don't want to say steal a moment, but sometimes it feels like you're just stealing a breather in between the Zoom meetings and the calls and the homeschooling and all the other things that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about it as caring for myself in the cracks, right? I have to find those spaces and time when I can. So whether it's when my kid takes a nap or whether it's, sitting them, getting them into another room and telling them, don't knock on my door unless it's an emergency, and getting your bath time or something, or putting them to bed 20 minutes earlier and making sure that you're getting time to focus. Another thing that I do, I wake up early. I wake up at 5 a.m. Some people can't do that for different reasons, but me doing that gives me a couple of hours in the morning that's just me and quiet, and I can focus on the things that I want to focus on. And then throughout the day, I try to find the cracks. And if your mind is focused on it as a priority, once again, we think about those priorities, you will find the cracks. If you're not focused on it and you're just like, I just got to get through and I'm just trying to survive, you're not going to find those cracks. You'll find that you might be scrolling on Instagram when maybe you had 5 minutes to do something that was self-caring. So it's about focusing on it and then really just kind of being intentional.
Mm-hmm. Thomas said, that's right. Thumbs up. Absolutely. And then Leonie said she bought a year of self-care last week. Yes. Yeah, Leonie, we'd love it. Excellent. I love that idea of taking care of yourself in the cracks. And I think going back to what we mentioned earlier, not feeling ashamed or disappointed in yourself or anything like that. In the beginning, would you say you might have to start with just finding the places in the cracks until you get to the point where you say, I can get up earlier. That takes a while, could take a while for someone to adjust. And if it's the cracks, but you have to make time for it.
Yes, absolutely. And starting small is fine. I don't suggest anybody who doesn't wake up that early start trying to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to be able to maintain it.
Exactly. Do the increments.
Yes, increments. Start it slow, start it small. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Even for myself, I know before the pandemic, if we can all remember that world, I was getting up at 4 a.m., but then I was going to the gym in the morning I had this whole routine that got me out of the house. once that stopped, when we literally couldn't go outside anymore, it disrupted everything. And even getting up earlier actually gave me more anxiety, because you get up early and I felt like I don't know what to do. I can't do anything. I can't go out. So my schedule sort of shifted. So to get back to that now with getting up earlier, definitely don't get up that early anymore. But I realized I was trying to jump back into that, and my body was like, no, ma'am, we are staying in this bed. We are not. So I had to do, in my way of doing it was like half hour increments. Like, okay, I'm going to get up a half hour earlier for a week. And then your body starts to adjust. And then I move it up a little bit more and move it up. So everyone's different, but that's how it worked for me. So even having gotten up really early before, I couldn't just jump back into it. I had to do small steps.
And that's also about honoring your season, because there's some seasons in your life where you can do that and things change, and you have to honor that and not get into that, well, I was doing that, so I should be able to do it. No, that's not fair. That's that you're in a different season now. And so you've got to work with that and you figured out how to do it incrementally or figure it out in the cracks. Yeah.
I am in the 8 a.m. rise season, in case anyone wants to know. I'm not. The 4 a.m. season is gone. I don't go to the gym. I mean, I work out differently, but it looks different. I think it's such a good point, in a different season. So one of the things I want to read from A Year of Self-Care. We both got A Year of Self-Care here. Everyone, honestly, I have this. It's on my coffee table. When I sit down on the couch, I read it, because each day, as Leonie knows, each day, Dr. Zoe has a self-care practice for you. And I'm flipping on the side. And what I love about it is it's actionable. Yep, yours too. It's actionable. It's actionable. So one thing I want to read, of course, I found this one, March 14th, ask for help. Sometimes you may feel convinced that if you want something done, you can only rely on yourself to do it. You may reinforce this belief by taking on too much, as we've been talking about today. Asking for help can feel like a sign of weakness. It's difficult to accept assistance because you may be tempted to judge that help that you will receive. Yes, you could have completed the task better, faster, and with more precision, but focus on the benefit of getting help, not the potential of it being done imperfectly. Care for yourself by asking for help today and accepting it exactly as it comes.
Yeah.
Beautiful theme. So tell us what inspired you, pushed you, because I know how hard it is to get a book out into the world, to write A Year of Self-Care right now.
It comes from that place of having been in burnout, having, trying to do all the things, being applauded for being a superwoman, and nobody in that process of everybody saying, oh, you're doing such a great job, you're such a great mom, you're doing so well. No one said, how are you taking care of yourself? Right. And when you're getting applauded for doing so well, it's hard to feel like, well, I should stop some of that, right? You get all that guilt and all those feelings. So I got to a place of burnout when I was ready to kind of chuck everything. And that's when I had to look inside and go, okay, wait, I can't expect anybody in my life to care for me, especially if I'm not caring for myself. We do teach people how to treat us. And if we're not sending out that energy or message, no one's going to be concerned about you. I don't know if I told this story, but I had a friend who I think she had a foot surgery or something. And my whole group of friends got together and they made meals for her and they did all things. Now I had maybe a month or two before the same procedure, and nobody got together to do anything for me. And I mentioned it kind of sideways to one of my friends. And she was like, oh, everybody just assumes you have it like all together. Like you don't need help. Like she needs help. And I was like, whoa, okay. So that was me teaching my environment, I don't need help. I can do it all on my own. Right? So little by little, and I have done every single self-care practice in this book, I learned how to start pouring into me and not expecting other people to care for me, except that I'm putting up a boundary and then telling them, this is what, I need from you. So that's how the book started. And as I decided to start formulating it, I looked at the seasons in our lives, right? And so each month focuses on a different aspect of self-care based on where we are in the season of the world. And then, in the seasons of our life as well. So that's how I kind of formulated it. And every day just has a little snippet, because most of us are busy, that you can just take a little piece and you can, if it's for you, that's good. If it's not for you, then you can go on to the next day.
Yes, beautiful. I absolutely love it. And as I've said it several times here, honestly, if you this is something you can keep either on your nightstand, but I don't know, for some reason I like when I come out, I have a whole routine of come out in the morning and open the shutters and raise it, and then the sunlight and I sit on a couch and it's there. And then you just pick it up and
Mhm.
read that day. And I think you made it brilliantly brief enough for people to be able
Mhm.
to read that day. It doesn't feel like, oh, I have to sit here and read, chapter and verse of all this. Nothing against reading chapter and verse in the Bible, but
Yeah.
chapter and verse of all this information, and it's accessible. So I absolutely love it, everyone. A Year of Self-Care, Daily Practices and Inspiration for Caring for Yourself by Dr. Zoe Shaw. Yes. Melissa said we do. Hi, Melissa. Melissa said we do teach people how to treat us. That's right. That is the best takeaway. That's right. And then from Facebook, oh, tell us who you are. It just says Facebook user. Great conversation, Elaine and Dr. Zoe. I'm going to order the book. Excellent. That's right. A Year of Self-Care.
And get over,
Excellent.
I got it.
I know, I know. We're doing all the listen. We are Dr. Zoe and I are not playing over here with you all. We got 2 books out this year. Get Over I Got It, my book, May 11th, which Dr. Zoe is in, which I'm so grateful for, and A Year of Self-Care, which is out now. Excellent. So, Dr. Zoe, tell me though, with you being a mom as you are and a partner and all the things that you're doing, what does we talked about what balance might look like, and I love what you said about adjustment, but how have you made sure, since we talked about this earlier, that you don't, in this new world, which is impossible and no one can tell us, well, this is how we did it unless we go back to the 1800s. How
Mhm.
are you making sure that you don't, that you show yourself a little bit of grace? You talked about taking care of yourself, but if things, I find, let me say this, I find, I'm not a mom, but I find a lot of my girlfriends whom I love dearly, who talk about, they're trying to figure it out. And we already have this thing where we feel like if we're not doing it perfectly or if something's not right, then somehow we failed or at least fallen short. In this new world, it's impossible to even know what the measure is. So I just want to speak for you to speak to the moms out there about how to, whether it's show yourself a little bit of grace or anything that you want to share. But that's something I try to remind them. But of course, I'm not a mom, so they're like, "Shut up, you don't know, you don't understand." No, they're good. But I just wanted moms to hear from moms.
Yeah, as a mom, I have the benefit now of having grown children, and then my youngest is now 8. And so that gives me a little bit of a larger lens to be able, I think, to give myself grace. But it's easy for me to say because my kids are grown and I know, oh, actually, they turned out pretty well. I did an okay job.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I believe strongly is that the children that you have are meant for you to have. God gave them to you, not just because of your strengths and your ability to parent them well, but also because of your deficits. Because our deficits as parents actually grow strengths in our children. So one of the metaphors that I like to use is the idea of a net, right? So if we look at the goal of parenting is to create a healthy, productive, well-rounded child, right? That goes into society and serves society. So if we think of that as like a healthy net, right? What is a net full of? Holes.
Net holes.
A
Mm-hmm.
net is full of holes. And a working net has to have those holes in them. So those holes are actually kind of the deficits that we, kind of sometimes a little pains and the hurts that we have in childhood, right? If you have a net without any holes, it is completely not functional. And there are children out there who are raised by parents who have completely coddled them to such an extent that they have very few holes. And they're just not really productive in society. And then there's the gaping holes, of course. Kids, are abused. I mean, things like that. That's not going to be a net with a gaping hole doesn't work either. But those little holes we put in our children, which are the result of our deficits, are actually healthy for them. And so a lot of times as moms, we feel guilty if we don't do the thing that other mom did, or if we know for some reason we failed our child in that little spot, we forgot to give them lunch, or we didn't show up at this. And what I want you to know is that that child was meant to be yours. And if we can show up as moms, as ourselves, instead of trying to show up as that mom we think we should be, instead of showing up as the PTA mom, then our child is actually going to have a healthier experience with an authentic mom than the fake one, if that makes sense. And if we don't parent out of guilt, our child will have a healthier experience with you as a mom. So having done all of those things, I can tell you that showing up authentically as yourself is the easiest way to mother, and it's the healthiest way to mother. And hopefully that takes a little bit of that guilt off of your shoulders. It just kind of takes some of that burden of having to be perfect off of your shoulders. So that's how I give myself grace, is reminding myself of that. There's something else I was going to say and I kind of blanked on it. So I'll let you go on and I'll.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I love the idea of the net, because I'm just thinking, even as you said, the net with holes has a little bit of give, even is what I visualized when you were talking about, as opposed to a
Resiliency,
stiff, fully
flexibility.
exactly, bounce back, resiliency. One of the things, another woman I interviewed for the book, Dr. Tracy Baxley, talked about also the importance of being able to say to your child, you know what, mommy messed up, or I missed that. In the book, she shares actually an example where she missed an event that her daughter was doing when her daughter was 9. Her daughter's in college now, but she still remembers that pain or that feeling of missing it.
Yeah.
Actually, she may have graduated now. Oh my goodness. But anyway, she just remembers that pain of missing it. But you have to be able to say, mommy messed up, or I'm sorry, I missed that. And she just talked about how that teaches her child how to be compassionate and to make mistakes and to own your mistakes, as opposed to trying to appear perfect in whatever that looks like. And kids know anyway, right?
Thank
They
you.
try, they know, especially today. Kids are so smart
Yeah.
today. Alex said, "Oh, hi, it's Alex. Thank you so much, Alex, for tuning in from Nigeria. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Excellent." So, Dr. Zoe, what would you say is something that you want to make sure? I mean, you've given us so much insight already, but is there something you want to make sure people know about, going back to what we started off initially about this idea of Superwoman, about showing grace, about all the things that we discussed today? What is a message you want to leave women and the few good men that are listening with today?
Stay in your lane. Your lane is beautiful. And if you can stay there, that's where you belong and that's where you're going to flourish. Yeah.
Beautiful. Stay in your lane. Excellent. Dr.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Melissa, Alex, Thomas. Who else we got here? Leonie, who already bought your book.
Yeah.
Who else? Kamal. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. Dr. Zoe Shaw, I truly appreciate you. I just love how you show up in the world and who you are as a person and the message that you're sharing through your book, A Year of Self-Care, and how, again, Dr. Zoe is featured in my book. So funny with all the books. We're trying to give you all the information, right? Get Over I Got It, which comes out May 11th. And you can go to getoverigotit.com. I'll make sure I update the the description, so you all can see links for where to find everything. Tell everyone, Dr. Zoe, where to find you if they want to get in touch with you once they hear this conversation.
Yeah, you can get in touch with me at all the social medias at Dr. Zoe Shaw. And I have to say, I've taken a quick peek at your book, and I am so thrilled and excited. And this topic is so needed. It's timely. The fact that it's coming out now, I think, is even better. It's timely, and I think everybody should get it, because we all need to let go of those capes. We all need to figure out how to redefine what that means for us. So thank you for all the women, Elaine, for writing this book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, so much. Hold on one second, Dr. Zoe. Let me see. Someone, thanks for this time with us. Melissa said, thank you. Thank you, Thomas.
Bye.
Hold on, Dr. Zoe.